Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. I want to start you off today in the Corn Belt, though, and I want to point out the severe weather we did see over the weekend. Numerous reports of very large hail in parts of Missouri and Iowa, including one supercell thunderstorm that ripped through here, producing multiple tornadoes. We then saw after this a lot of severe wind damage, and had a crop been in the ground, this would have produced substantial damage to that crop. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because of a couple of things. First of all, we do expect that the spring of 2022 to be very active from severe weather. And I'm going to go all the way back to the southern plains, clear to the mid-Atlantic. This whole area is an area that historically, given the fact we still have this La Nina in place, that we would expect to see this kind of severe weather region having above average activity. If you did not get a chance to see over the weekend the storm, I'm just going to take you to my Twitter feed here. And this particular video comes from XRP okay? And his video here just shows us the size of this particular tornado. We call this a wedge. That's one where it is wider than it is tall from cloud base to bottom. And we still have a preliminary estimates going on about the damage, which are, of course, not going to be accurate in terms of what this will eventually rank as. But I imagine this will be on the higher end, EF3 or above, when it is all said and done. Tragically, these storms actually claimed 7 lives on Saturday. And where this has been since then is this radar animation, which goes back to early this morning. So we actually brought in heavy snow on the backside of this. But this is the frontal boundary you're going to be watching all day today as it advances toward the Carolinas. And when you look at what we're going to be seeing over the next week, we're going to get multiple chances of rain coming at our area. So first front comes through today, initiating the chance for severe storms. Then we have a second low that's going to come out here. You'll see how soon that one comes out in the lower Mississippi River Valley and spread rain in this area. And then there's a low that's going to come out of the Pacific Northwest, come over the Great Basin, and then eject and run right back through the central United States. And as you can imagine, that one, as it pulls into the New England area, is going to drag a front through us as well. So we have here, just looking over the next week, possibly 3 chances of picking up, well, as you see from the map here, the possibilities of getting more than 1 inch to 2 inches of rain is in the forecast. And what's important about that is when you just stitch together the next 10 days, we see that we're going to be looking at above average precipitation. How much? Maybe upwards of 1 inch to 1.5 inches more than normal. Now, what I want to do with this is I want you to just take a very close look at this map, because we continue to see this region here in the southern plains, parts of the northern plains, and a big section of California, southern Oregon, that continue to be very dry. Right now, California is having its driest start to any year since 1893. And there's major risk going forward. Now, for us over here in North Carolina, we're going to be curing some drought that we've been developing. This is 40 centimeter or 16-inch soil moisture right now. So we can see the drought that's still developing here in the Central Plains. We've helped eliminate some of those issues in this part of the Western Corn Belt. It's been extremely wet in the Mid-South, but we're going to start to see this all erode away as better moisture comes in here in the very near term. We also had at the end of last week a new drought monitor that was released. And once again, we see that 73% of the contiguous United States is still in some stage of drought, from abnormally dry all the way to exceptional drought. What's good about this is that we expect this area to start to beat back on the drought risk because of the rain that's coming. What we need to be concerned about, though, is where does this all progress forward? So I want you to hang on to the end of this video, because I've got brand new long-range 7-month outlook that just came out from the European model over the weekend. I'm going to share it with you in a few seconds. Why I put it at the end is we've got some near-term hazards we need to be discussing. For one, today the winds are going to be quite strong. There are high wind advisories all throughout this region. And the flooding rains that just moved through parts of the Mid-South, remember, that's coming, our way here very, very soon. In the meantime, though, and this is why I put this at the front, we do have the risk for strong to severe storms today. So the Storm Prediction Center has a large area centered on the Appalachian Mountains where there's the risk for some severe storms. So I want to talk about that first today. So why don't we go right into the high-res Namm model, and let's get this out here to about, there's 10 a.m. this morning. So if we watch this, there's going to be a very skinny line of storms that comes over the mountains right here this afternoon, and that's going to be the risk time period we're looking at. That line tends to be quite narrow, but still moving through parts of central North Carolina by the time we get into this evening, and then the front clears out in the overnight hours. So that's our risk area today. All right. Now after that, see this big area of high pressure? Underneath it, in the upper levels, a little short, it's going to cut right down here. and it's going to start to draw in some moisture on Tuesday that comes into the lower Mississippi River Valley. So that short wave is coming through, the high pressure is moving to the north. So what's going on here is we're getting lift here, drawing in the moisture, with high pressure to the north, bringing the flow around like this, and that means we're going to create a front in this area. So this is Tuesday afternoon going into Tuesday evening, and then eventually here into Wednesday morning and Wednesday midday. And that's when our rain chances come again for the second time this week. So we have the storms tonight. This shows up Wednesday, all right? And that front slowly moves on out by noon Wednesday. But the next system we're going to have to watch is taking shape right here over parts of the Great Basin, and that will be the third of these three systems we're going to deal with this week. I'm going to add up the rainfall for you first so we can get an idea about this, then we'll take a look at that third system. So through Tuesday morning, the models are not going to pick up very well on the precipitation from the thunderstorms. Not designed to. This particular model is not. So you see these lighter amounts. You see the heaviest is back on the Appalachian Mountains, but some of these storms could put down, of course, more than a quarter of an inch of rainfall. So that's system number one. Then you saw system number two. There it is, showing up. Okay, this is Tuesday night through Wednesday night. Okay, so that's the one that comes through and adds us up to possibly in some areas getting over an inch. Then the third system, watch it add up here on, there it is, Saturday coming through. And that's why when we look out here just through the next 7 days alone, much of the state is looking at getting better than an inch of rain, with some locations here probably better than 2 inches of precipitation based on the operational run. So let's go take a look at that. We're going to go to the European model and now look at the hourly stuff. Every 6 hours. So this is the first system. We've talked about that one. There's the second one that comes through on Wednesday. Now that one clears, and then by the time we get into Thursday, watch here, it takes shape over the Mid-South. This is now Friday at 6 p.m. The rain's already starting to get into our area. Could be some strong to severe storms south. I'm talking about South Carolina, Georgia, Florida. But then as this one comes through, you can see that that's really going to be a Friday midday through Saturday morning event. And that front tries to clear out pretty quickly. There's going to be some snow on the backside of this coming to the Appalachian Mountains. All right, that's three big systems inside of a week. And then we get a little bit of a break out to next Tuesday, Wednesday. But I wouldn't rest too much on this pattern. And the reason for that is by the time we get to day 10, this is March 17th. See this right here? Doesn't look like much, does it? So the flow dips down into a trough. Well, that trough slides right here by the time we get to the 19th. And then what would happen is it's going to be somewhere here in the Mid-South by the 20th, which means at the end of next week, all right, the end of next week, I'm looking at another system coming through. The models haven't fully resolved it yet. That's why they have this whole region over to be a little bit drier than normal. But we're going to watch out for that one. Again, that's coming around the 20th, all right there at our equinox. Okay, from here, let's talk temperatures. Oops, I was already looking ahead. Let me go back and show you what's going on. Yeah, today we're still deep in this warm sector. That's why we have the risk of severe storms. Today's highs getting into the 80s. Front swipes through on Tuesday. Got the cooler air by Wednesday. Okay. Then the real cold push is coming through the plains at this point and this part of the Rocky Mountains. That's Wednesday. So we go into Thursday, still have the cooler air. This is a lot due to cloud cover and a little backdoor cold front coming through. But then we're going to see on Friday the warm up ahead of the next system that comes through. This is Saturday into Sunday. So you're going to be on a bit of a roller coaster ride with temperatures. We go out there beyond that. How long does that colder air last? Probably it'll last into midweek next week. But there's some good indications that day 10 through 15, which gets us all the way out there, to March 21st, 22nd, that time frame, we see better chances of mild air returning. Okay, that's what's going on in the next 2 weeks. Now, we got to dig into this longer term. We just had this released. This is showing the forecast for March 15 to April 15. And the models are hanging on to persistence. They're keeping this whole region above average in terms of precipitation, drier throughout the plains and western Corn Belt. Without a subtropical jet, the desert southwest from the Four Corner states to California stays drier as well, which means systems come in like this, eject over the mountains, make the turn, and that's where they start to develop. So we miss out on the rains in this area. Temperature pattern, it's not even worth showing you. And the reason why is because to average 30 days together on precip isn't going to make a lick of sense. It's going to be relatively highly volatile. And some of the reasoning behind this, well, let me show it to you, is a lot to do with what's still going on in the tropics. Now you notice, I'll just highlight it right here. That's the area of the best rising motion from today, March 7th, all the way through the 22nd of the month. And it sits right here. And those numbers, 4, 5, and 6, are where the MJO is going to be. Now, why is it going to be there? Well, our La Nina is fading, but you wouldn't know it. These blue-green colors represent moving right here in this part of the Pacific Ocean. I'm talking this region here. Strong trade winds. That is very typical La Nina. And it's meeting slower trade winds, or trade winds that even stopped or even coming out of the west. So what's the net effect? The net effect is your rising motion sits right in between the two, which is right over MJO phase, 4, 5, and 6. Now, before it gets there, the MJO's got to come out of null space. It's got to pop out here into phase 2, come over into phase 3, then get into 4, 5, and 6. See what I'm talking about? It's not over here, that's for sure. It's out of the Indian Ocean over toward Australia. That's what we just showed. So we know what that typically means. If it's in March, we tend to get a little bit of ridging off the southeast coast and storm systems that roll just like we're expecting to see here. That's why the models are saying, keep this area active. Now, there's good to this. I know we start thinking about planting actively right now. It's time to go. Get the soil temperatures up. Let's roll. This is going to keep things a bit tight with respect to precipitation, and it's all because of what the MJO is going to do. So let me put in this caveat. If the MJO fails, what I mean by that is if it doesn't, there we go. If it doesn't fully make the sweep around to 4, 5, possibly even 6, then we're going to see a much different precipitation pattern. If it comes collapsing back into null space, I'll be talking about more drier conditions. If it even pops out on the other side of this diagram, we could be really talking about redevelopment of drought. So all of those things are possibilities. The greatest possibility right now being that it does sweep through phase 2 into 3 and 4 and 5, which is the forecast I just showed you. Now beyond that, let me open up a new window here. I'm going to go to my weather website and I want to show you sea surface temperatures. There we go. This is our current picture of sea surface temperatures. And this La Nina, I've talked about it fading for a while. It has got to be the slowest fade I've ever seen. It's taken its dear sweet time. And there's a little bit of warm water showing up here, but this is no like El Nino emergence right away. That La Nina right here is going to continue to influence our weather in a big way. Let me show you what I got. The latest updates just came out showing that this La Nina is going to hang around through March and April. It starts to fade again, once we get into the end of spring. And we call the white area on this graph neutral. That's called INSO-neutral, which means we don't have a strong enough signal either from the trade winds or from the ocean temperatures to tell you that we've got a El Nino or La Nina. The newest thing that came out from the model runs is that the spread going into fall, look at this September here, is now much larger. And what I mean by that is earlier there was better consensus that we had a higher probability by this fall of seeing an El Nino developing. It's very rare to have a triple La Nina where another one forms. In other words, these ocean temperatures pop up and then come right back down here. It's been a long time since we've seen something like that occur. Is it a possibility? Sure. Best chances are I think we're going to be sitting right here in INSO-neutral conditions and watching to see if a weak El Nino develops. How do I get that information? I'm going to stick with the European model here. Now, these are ocean temperatures for March forecast by the model. You can see the extent of the La Nina. As we play this forward, this goes into April, May, June, July, August, September. See that? Now here's a couple of important things. This is not what I would call the full emergence of El Nino-like weather. The La Nina tends to slide south. What is important is the waters here are now exhibiting more of a warm-up. We have warm water north of Australia. And these three things combined reduce our risk of summer drought. Doesn't take the risk away, it reduces it. Next, there's still warm water here. And that warm water in that area gives us increased risk, of course, of hurricane development. And we know how that works. So I got to watch this carefully. Do I expect 2022 to be what it was in 2021 or 2020? I don't. I expect this upcoming hurricane season to not be like the last 2 years, but still probably be above average. Now that's just ocean temperatures. Why don't we take this back? Let's flip this over to precipitation patterns. Let's do this in 3-month window. How about that? And let's come into the United States. That's March, April, and May. That bites hard, really hard into what we just talked about. Behavior of the MJO, persistence in where there is drought, better flow coming through the Mid-South means we have better chances of not seeing drought develop in spring. As we go forward, that's April, May, June, June, July, August. The models are once again trying to split the country on the Mississippi River Valley. Now, how good are these models? They sometimes exhibit high accuracy. And if you want just a quick explanation, high accuracy, well, I could be accurate at throwing a dart at a bullseye standing on my head blindfolded. I could hit the bullseye once, but if I could do it again and again and again, we call that skill. Where these models suffer is in their skill. What they are kind of troubled by is persistence. And what I mean is there's already drought here, so they want to keep developing it. There's already cold water in the Gulf of Alaska. They're initialized with that. There's a La Nina fading. They're initialized. And all that points toward risk here. Why you see wetter east is because of the same factors. Historically, it's just better. We have to look at this and understand that it is simply a forecast. It's highly speculative, and it will change. But this is what we've got that just came in. In terms of temperatures, let's just go out there and do a seasonal temperature, but we'll go backward, okay? You can see that by summer, the greatest heat compared to average is going to stretch again, according to the model from Texas through the Central Plains back into Montana. And as we go backward here, let's just go back and see spring. There we go. We notice that we don't see major deviations from normal in spring here across the East Coast. Now, I just want to reiterate here. You're seeing raw model output. We're attempting to explain this away by knowing what we know historically about a fading La Nina. And so this is in that context. And what I want you to understand is the pattern will evolve. We'll see things change. There will be new players that will show up. And we just need to keep a close eye on those. At this point, the risk for North Carolina developing drought this summer is very slightly below the historical average. But that can change in a heartbeat. Because in North Carolina, I feel that we are always a week away from developing drought. So I'm going to watch all of this, and that's why I give you a video every week, so we can stay on top of it. Let's see how things play out over the next 10 days, where we're expecting wet conditions, and then we'll watch as we slide into spring. I'll talk to you again next week. Until then, have a good rest of your week, and get ready for some rain. Thanks.